Tonight, we debate the debate. Who won, who lost, the highlights, the lowlights. Our political panel's here to pick through it all. And then we will fact check it. Who lied more? We'll break down the fibs and the full pants on fire. Then we shift gears to what was a memorable night in sports. Not a playoff game, no Super Bowls or anything else, but paying tribute to two stars here who died this week. The golf legend Arnold Palmer and a Marlins pitcher, Jose Fernandez, that is still resonating with his teammates. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French here. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Well, one debate down and two more to go on the presidential side. It's looking like last night's debate was the most watched ever. I'm talking all time, with nearly 81 million viewers. And the big question today is, who won? Well, for what it's worth, the CNN poll shows that people picked Hillary by a huge margin. That seems to be the general consensus, a win, but not a knockout. Check out the headlines. The Hill says the pundits pick Hillary. Washington Post says even a lot of Republicans say Hillary won. Nate Silver's 538 says she won, and that could cause a bump in her poll numbers. Now here's a look at some of last night's highlights. The first presidential debate turned into a backyard brawl.
So when you try to act holier than thou, it really doesn't work.
I have a feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not?
Early on, Clinton painting Trump as a rich kid turned ruthless businessman.
He started his business with $14 million borrowed from his father, and he really believes that the more you help wealthy people, the better off we'll be, and that everything will work out from there. I don't buy that.
The candidates repeatedly interrupting each other and also interrupting moderator Lester Holt.
She tells you how to fight ISIS on her website. I don't think General Douglas MacArthur would like that too much.
The next segment, we're continuing the subject of...
Well, at least I have a plan to fight ISIS.
Clinton putting Trump on the defense over not releasing his taxes.
When he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes
if
me
he's
smart.
But Trump winning over the crowd by saying this.
When she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted, as soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns.
Clinton addressing her email scandal.
You know, I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
And if I had to do it over again, I would obviously do it differently. But I'm not going to make any excuses. It was a mistake, and I take responsibility for that.
But then Trump hit turbulence, failing to explain why he pushed the notion that President Barack Obama was not born in the U.S. for 5 years, knowing it was a lie.
I was the one that got him to produce the birth certificate, and I think I did a good job.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to follow up, and I will let you respond to that because if there's a lot there, but we're talking about racial healing in this segment. What do you say to Americans?
Well, it was I say nothing. I say nothing because I was able to get him to produce it.
As Trump struggled, Clinton took advantage.
He has really started his political activity based on this racist lie that our first black president was not an American citizen.
Now, in a few minutes, we're going to play some more clips and break that down with our panel as well. But we're going to start with the birther debate you just heard. And I'm going to bring in our panel now. We got Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent, who was on the ground there in Hofstra, or at Hofstra rather, last night. First off, guys, who won? I mean, do you guys agree with the general consensus? Sitting here last night, used the boxing analogy, not a knockout, but she definitely won on points. You buy that?
Richard, I don't even think it's debatable on the right. I mean, what we saw last night was an autopsy, if you will, of what happens when you don't prepare for a debate.
Do you think she won it more or he lost it more?
She won it because she baited him, she played him, she said the clock is on my side, I'm going to let him get the first 30 minutes, he'll look presidential, and now I'm going to start breaking him down. And he couldn't refuse. She threw the bait out there, and he took it on every issue. Just one example, you just played the clip. This is a topic on race that we're talking about birther. I have nothing to say. You have nothing about race relations, and you're talking about being the president. The country is exploding, you know, theoretically, and you have nothing to say about this. It was brutal. It was brutal.
I'll stick with the boxing metaphor that you used. Yeah, I think she won, but I also think, remember back to the end of Rocky and Rocky II, how beat up they both were, and how neither one of them exactly looked like they were about to, you know, go out dancing out. I mean, I think she won, but I think it was A, because he performed so poorly, and B, because she provoked him properly. But I also think that, frankly, the rest of us lost. I mean, the issues that the country needs to face got thrown under the bus last night, and it was really just a back and forth to see whose ego could stand the most abuse. I thought it was a horrible debate, maybe the worst debate I've ever seen at this level in a general election. And
not that you were surprised that it happened, right? Were you really shocked given the participants, particularly Trump?
I thought they were each going to try to emulate more of the other. I thought Trump was going to try to act more presidential and show a greater command of policy.
We knew in 30 seconds when he said, "What should I call you?" Basically, I'm going to call you Secretary Clay. And I want to make you happy. And I was like, right there, you can almost hear the groans here. He's going there for the next hour and a half.
I have to admit that you were right about, you've been saying for the last couple of nights, you said that can he make the duration of 90 minutes?
He looked wiped out.
And that proved to be 1,000% accurate. Good the first 30 minutes, decent, perhaps. But if you turned off the channel after 15, 20 minutes, he was okay. After that, it wasn't pretty. As each minute wore on, she played him like a cheap suit.
He didn't want to be there, was my impression, by the last 30 minutes, and he looked like the guy that was exhausted. We'll get into some clips, but temperament. And I think, Andrew, he said it right. If you were going there hoping, or you tuned in last night, you were hoping to say, okay, I want to know from my next commander-in-chief where they stand on these issues. Maybe the format didn't lend itself to it or whatever else, but they basically tried to diagnose each other as to who was the one that was least likable, who was the one that was a bigger child. Now, Hillary won last night, to Andrew's point. Maybe none of us in the general public won, but nonetheless, I thought Donald Trump confirmed at every opportunity, to Dominic's point, that he took the bait. He came across, I believe, as infantile. And I'm not so sure he got any converts last night. I'm not sure how many Hillary got, but I think if you were in the undecided, as the poll suggested here, people felt more comfortable with her in the Oval Office than her opponent. All right, now I want to get to the issue of temperament and take a listen to what Trump said on that subject last night. I want you to pay special attention here to Hillary's reaction at the very end.
Mrs. Clinton.
Well, I have much better judgment than she does. There's no question about that. I also have a much better temperament than she has. You know, I have a much better. The AFL-CIO the other day, behind the blue screen, I don't know who you were talking to, Secretary Clinton, but you were totally out of control. I said, there's a person with a temperament that's got a problem.
Secretary Clinton.
Woo, okay.
You know, he looked bad. People laughed in the audience. She didn't even have to say anything. Temperament, Trump, you know, that he's got, that's the best characteristic he's got. But I was watching at the time, I'm like, really? That's the look you're going for? Like, she's having a great time, you know, getting in the dirt here and having a fight. She won it. But at a certain point, I was expecting she was going to be like, really? You know?
If you ever meet somebody who describes themselves as classy,
yeah,
they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have a presidential candidate who's talking about how great his temperament is and how much better it is than his opponents, it's not. And I think he proved that last night. I think it was funny because that came towards the end, and there was like an hour and 15 minutes of him showing that he doesn't have the temperament to be the president of the United States, and then boasting about how good his temperament is.
But there's also the other boasting part, Andrew. Who is the constituency that he's trying to appeal to when she goes through basically his tax record, and obviously not releasing his returns, but she said from the returns you released, and we know this is true, basically you paid no taxes in 2 years. And for him to interrupt her to say, that makes me smart, every other person in America is saying, wait a minute, I got to pay taxes. Who's paying for the military? Who's paying to fix your roads here? I'm paying to fix your road, Donald Trump?
He's still peddling the myth. He's still peddling the myth of his business savvy, and that's what makes him eligible to be president of the United States. Look at how good I am at my business. Forget all the facts. Forget the fact that he, got a big loan from his father, or that he cheats people out of money, or that he defrauds people along the way, or that he gets sued constantly. Forget all of that. He's selling that myth, and as long as he keeps telling low information voters how good a businessman he is, people who are not that attuned to the political system and also who are very frustrated with the way the country is going right now and the way they feel Washington isn't responding, that's who he's playing to. That's the only group left for him to play to.
Well, on the subject of Iraq, take a listen again to Donald Trump and his explanation on what people have said has been shifting positions on whether or not he was for or against the war.
Had we taken the oil, and we should have taken the oil, ISIS would not have been able to form either, because the oil was their primary source of income. And now they have the oil all over the place, including a lot of the oil in Libya, which was another one of her disasters.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, I hope the fact checkers are turning up the volume and really working hard. Donald supported the invasion of Iraq.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
He actually advocated for the actions we took in Libya and urged that Gaddafi be taken out after actually doing some business with him one time.
We'll get into fact checking next segment here, but he's daring people to say, don't listen to what everybody else is saying, and don't listen to what they're going to tell you I did or I didn't do. Just trust me. That might work in a primary where there's a lot of people on the stage, but when there's only two people and they're going to focus on what you said the next day and push you, as we'll see from some of the questions that he didn't acquit himself well today, the day after, it doesn't play well. We're starting to see that there's a difference between a primary and a general. And the little soundbite can't get you through an hour and a half.
Not only that, Richard, he knows that the press corps has the tape of his appearance on Howard Stern, which clearly says that he may try and walk it back, but he clearly states support for the invasion, for the war in Iraq. Everyone has seen Howard Stern is one of the biggest shock jocks there is. So it's like delusional. And it may work, to your point, it may work in a primary, but you didn't do yourself any favors last night, Mr. Trump. As a matter of fact, maybe Giuliani was right. You shouldn't show up for the next
We're going to get into that one in a little bit.
Don't forget the first part of that clip about stealing the oil. We've been hearing this for a long time from Donald Trump. That is illegal.
Right.
It's a violation of international law. It's
yeah.
piracy. No, you have to go back to the Crusades in medieval times to find wars that were committed just for plunder. And that's exactly what he's talking about.
Imagine the reaction also in the region.
Right. Can you imagine what the Arab and Muslim world would think of us if we started doing? I mean, it's beyond the pale. And the fact that he spews out so much garbage throughout the course of a debate that fact gets overlooked. Obviously he's caught on tape with the Iraq war.
Again, a lot of, as you had been saying, Andrew, is we didn't get into the policy and the real issues that we, the electorate, would want to know, whether it's her or him, what they do if they were in the Oval Office on key issues. As another example, Trump went directly after Clinton on the subject of stamina. As you all remember, Hillary went off the campaign trail with pneumonia. She also left the campaign trail before the debate to study up for debate prep here. Trump went directly after that.
She doesn't have the look. She doesn't have the stamina.
As soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities in nations around the world, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee, he can talk to me about stamina.
There's the difference between debate prep and not debate prep. Clearly, she was waiting for that question. Sure. She was answering, she turned it around, and then she said, also, yes, I did prepare. And you know what? I'm preparing to be president. Mm-hmm. And then she got the applause lines. You can't do a flyby on this, especially when you don't have a record in public service, so you know some of the facts just by osmosis, by being on the job. It was really evident, to Don's point, really from minutes 20 through minutes 90, and you were there, you could see it, right?
Yeah, you really could, and you got the sense, and we'd seen this through the primary debates too, that Trump sort of faded into the background, particularly when he was on a full stage with 9 other people. last night, he couldn't do that because there was no place for him to hide. And he sort of did fade away a little bit and lost a little bit of the starch on some of his arguments. By the way, the substance of that last point also, I'm sorry, in my mind, that's completely sexist. There is no way that he accuses a male candidate of not having the stamina for the job. Please, that's a hit on her as a woman, and I find it offensive.
He did with Jeb Bush. He did the part that's sexist and offensive, right? But the part that was sexist when she doesn't have the look.
Mm-hmm. But then let's roll goes. You said look. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Well, just like you did.
But Richard, she doesn't have the look. His word. Was Secretary of State, Senator replacing Moynihan, First Lady. You were a celebrity TV star.
But we knew we were going to get that, Don. What really I thought that came out of this is there's certain doors that are going to be closed to him from now through November 8th, which is he can't go after that exchange that she's too tired, she doesn't have the stamina. She was a lot more energy in that last hour than he was at the end of it, okay? I also think he's going to have to tread carefully in terms of some of the gender issues as to whether or not look and everything else. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of this break. And we come back, the fallout from what happened last night, and already we're getting an idea from the Trump camp what they thought of last night. They're complaining. Hillary, maybe she's smiling a little too much. We're also going to talk about where we go from here as we have still 2 presidential debates coming up. And will this guy be there for both of them? We'll talk about all that and more after this.
When she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted, as soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns.